Welcome to Slamtown. This is our newest show on Fighters First. Of course, fightersfirst.shop. Get all your latest merch. Got that Chicago-made shirt on in honor of this episode that we're doing. Our very first episode of Slamtown, me and Dan Bakley, we're going to be coming at you every single week, having a different topic to talk about. We're not going to bore you with a lot of different subjects. We're going to come at you with one episode every week. It's going to be about 20, 30 minutes, and we're just going to come at you and hit you hard. We're going to pick a topic. We're going to debate it to death, and then we're just going to go about our business just like you are at home. But, of course, I am not doing this alone. I've already talked about him a second. Joined by Dan Bakley. Dan, what's up, buddy? You excited about this new show?
Oh, yeah, I'm excited to talk about wrestling. If it's not MMA, I'm all about wrestling in the background. So,
of course, you can find Dan on our network, Cage My IQ, DFS with Cage. Just a ton of content always coming out, and we got one more show right here for you. We've been dying to get a wrestling show, so hopefully you guys enjoy it as much as we do doing it. We're gonna, like I said, we're gonna pick a different topic every single week. And Dan, right off the bat, it's been kind of eating at me for a while. So we're gonna take turns. This week will be my show. Next week will be Dan's show to kind of come out with you with topics. So if you don't like either episode, just know all the odd episodes are gonna be my fault, and all the even episodes are gonna be his fault. So just leave that in the comments when you get ready to complain. But it's been eating at me. And let me start. I should have said this in the beginning. Dan and I are both huge AEW marks. We both love it. I was at the very first episode of Dynamite in Washington, D.C. when I was living there. Dan's been to some episodes. He's constantly going to that. Got New Japan coming up and a bunch of other stuff right in his backyard in Jersey and Pennsylvania. So understand, we are huge AEW marks. This is not intended to be a slap at AEW. It's just a question. Dan, with all the influx of talent coming into AEW right now, especially WWE wrestlers, more recently, of course, Ruby Soho, Bryan Danielson, CM Punk, if you want to consider him. I mean, he's been out of the game 6 years, but he did spend a number of years in WWE, and that's what kind of catapulted him into fame. You go back even before that, Christian Cage, Big Show, Mark Henry, Matt Hardy, Brody Lee. All these guys came over and girls came over from WWE with a name. And they kind of took us a little bit of the spotlight, right? When AEW was founded, and like I said, people, I'm throwing this out. There's a question. It's for open debate. Feel free to leave a comment below. Jump in that conversation with us. And a like and subscribe, by the way. But the question really is, when you have tag teams like Santana and Ortiz and Private Party, obviously Jurassic Express has still kept their momentum up, but new tag teams like WWE tag teams like FTR coming over, stealing some spotlight. The question really is AEW overpopulating the roster to a point where the homegrown talent, if you want, the Britt Bakers, obviously all the EVPs, Young Bucks, Omega, and Cody will always be great. But, you know, they try to keep pushing Jungle Boy. They try to keep pushing Darby and Sammy, and that's great. But what about all the other talent they were pushing up that they kind of built like in the beginning, the Joey Janellas that we haven't really seen except unless you watch AEW Dark or Elevation. They basically turned in their YouTube shows for all the talent that's kind of getting buried off the main shows on Dynamite and Rampage. They added a whole nother TV show, but it's still all the top guys. Guys like Miro, just another WWE guy that came over. And then, of course, the rumor mill going, what happens if a Bray Wyatt, a.k.a. Wyndham Rotunda, comes over? What happens if Braun Strowman, or even some of the ones that they do the crossover with Impact, like the Good Brothers, all these talents are WWE talents coming in and just taking the spotlight from existing talent. And I'm not really sure it's deserved. In some cases, obviously, they have bigger name value, and a business is a business. But that's what we're going to debate today. I'm going to go ahead and start off with Dan. Dan, when you think about AEW, are they turning into WCW, which is obviously the worst case scenario because there's too many people playing in the bullpen? Or do you like this whole influx of talent and you think it only makes their brand stronger?
I think there's a lot of little avenues to go with this topic just in general. I think you just said all they begin to be like WCW My answer is no, just for the fact that WCW, they bought a lot of guys, but they gave them a lot of creative control. And then they didn't grow any homegrown talent from the get-go. Yes, they had a whole bunch of, I guess you would say, homegrown talent because they plucked from the indies, so they could kind of get guys when they're young. You got guys like Orange Cassidy. He's not technically old, but he's at the regular
They've been
wrestling
wrestling for a
age.
few years.
Yeah, he's at that point. You got MJF. He's in his early 20s. Same thing with the Jungle Boy. Sammy Guevara, I believe, is only 26 or 27. You got some core guys there. Even Hangman Page, he's at a decent age. So you got some of these guys
Another guy you haven't seen on TV in a while.
Yeah, I believe he was out since he was having a baby or getting ready to have a baby, but he should be back, I think, on camera soon. But those guys that you can build off of just from the get-go. They had all those guys just from the get-go. So they've already crushed the thought of this is the next WCW because they have homegrown talent from the beginning, whereas WCW, they had DDP and they had Goldberg. Those are the only guys that you can think of that are homegrown talent there. And I think what AEW started from the beginning was kind of have that.
I kind of disagree with you, but I'll let you finish your thought before I jump on that homegrown talent with WCW. But go ahead.
But I think they had that core value there to start out with there. I know you said you wanted to build it from there, but some of those faces not a lot of people knew about, and some of them have already left. I'll give a name, for example, Jimmy Havoc. Jimmy Havoc had issues.
Well, he had other issues.
He had issues now. Now he works a full-time job in England because he's not wrestling anymore. But I think,
if I'm not mistaken, he got caught up in that whole the wrestling version of Me Too, like, right? Like when they had, or was he
the main issue was rehab for him. But I think the one big thing that AEW has done to help out with a lot of the talent was, just like you said, the YouTube channels. I think they're putting the most recognizable faces on Dynamite and Rampage, but then they sprinkle in a little bit of the young talent on Rampage, and then they put all the young talent on Dark and Dark Elevation. And it's a good spot for those young talent that need to grow before they can trust them in that spotlight of being on Dynamite. You bring up the fact that they're taking away opportunities. You got to think of what WWE is doing. Everybody says WWE is not doing the same thing. They plucked a lot of their talent from Impact. They plucked WCW when WCW went out of business. They got ECW wrestlers when they went out. They've taken a couple people from New Japan. You look at Nakamura. You look at Finn Balor. You got the Good Brothers when they had them before they went over to Impact. They did the same thing. It's just about trying to build the best roster. And I think moving forward, what they're going to do is have the recognizable faces on Dynamite and Rampage. And with the enlarged talent, it allows them to mix up matchups. They're not doing the same old matchups every night. They got a more broader roster to choose matchups from and to build more storylines from. So I think from that standpoint, that's what they're doing. They're building a bigger roster to add to the storylines that they can possibly do in the future.
I think, well, for one, I think that WCW is a little bit harder of a reference because what you talked about WCW not having homegrown talent, not necessarily true because they came from NWA. You're talking about Ric Flair, Sting, Lex Luger, on and on and on. The Steiner Brothers, Road Warriors, all those made their name in NWA, WCW before they ever went to WWE and WWF. So I kind of disagree with you on that one. The problem WCW came into is when they started bringing in these guaranteed contracts and names from around the world, not just WWF, WWE, but what they did was they brought in these people, they overpaid them, which is the biggest concern with AEW, right? You're bringing in a CM Punk, a Bryan Danielson, maybe even a Bray Wyatt or something like that. We don't know for sure, but we do know those two names weren't probably cheap, right? We knew they probably had to pay up to get those names. Now you give them more freedom, you let them do whatever. Maybe they take a little bit less to do it, but you're still paying a pretty penny. And that's really what it comes down to, is the money, right? The money aspect of it is that. And by the way, I can already see it at home. Dan is going to be the babyface and I'm going to be the heel like every episode. But I'm kind of used to playing that role, so it's fine. Check out Art of MMA. I'm pretty much the heel every week. So, but my thing is, like, my worry is the money part of it. Like, you're overpaying people, and then you have people on the roster that have been grinding for a year. Yeah, Jack Swagger is a WWE guy. I'm sorry. I got to start talking about old school and start going the other way. Obviously, Goldust, Dustin Rhodes, Cody Rhodes, most notably. And once you talk about the WWE bringing these people in, is that they do it a little bit differently. Other than AJ Styles, I think, who obviously had global name value. A lot of people look at the Good Brothers, right? Obviously, Gallows had a long history in WWE, different characters, different times, different gimmicks. But Anderson had never been there, and most of the crowd didn't know who he was. The thing WWE does, and we talked about this also on a past episode of Art of MMA, where we talk about MMA fans versus wrestling fans. Wrestling fans tend to have a good idea of who people are, but WWE fans are different, right? Like, as an AEW wrestling fan and just a wrestling fan, we could go and have an episode on New Japan, Ring of Honor, NWA Power, name it, like Impact Wrestling, which probably won't be. I'm not a fan, not anymore. But that's a whole nother episode. But all this, like, different wrestling around the world. We could talk about British wrestling. We could talk about wrestling in India, because we're wrestling fans. We follow the dirt sheets. We follow everything going on. Then there's WWE fans that the moment you leave WWE, like Drew McIntyre went away for years, redeveloped himself on Impact Wrestling, and came back and was a huge star again. To WWE fans, it was like he was dead. Like, he left. Bobby Lashley left, did the same thing, MMA, Impact, came back, right? But to WWE fans, it's like, where has this guy been? They don't watch MMA. They don't watch other wrestling promotions. They're your 13 to 18-year-olds that watch what's on main TV, right? And then the older fans that have been watching it so long, we can't tune off even if it's garbage. I mean, we can only hope the draft helped mix up things to make it more entertaining, but we don't know that for sure. And while AEW is more, and they've kind of pitched it from day one, more on the lines of like competition for NXT, right? Because they're developing talent. When you start signing these big names, especially as CM Punk and Bryan Danielson, now you're competing with WWE. Now you're like, all right, we're not playing second fiddle anymore. You add a second show. You're moving over to TBS and doing TNT. You got the YouTube channel, which is obviously in 2021 a necessity. Here we are. Where are we at? YouTube. So I get that aspect, and I get they're still exposing talent in a way that most people can't. You do a simple search for a certain match, obviously AEW is going to come up way before WWE, because they're maximizing the internet and they're maximizing technology today. But even AEW had the problem with too much politics. Tony Khan has just recently taken back almost all the power in the show. I've heard other people say it off air. I heard Conan say it. Some other people. Cody, Omega, the Young Bucks, their power has been pulled way back because they were abusing it, bringing in their friends, doing stuff like that, doing just wild angles.
Which is a good move.
Yeah, because you have to have one person kind of orchestrating and pulling the strings, and then you can have everybody else kind of doing a certain role. And I think that's the problem when they first started, is like everybody wanted to do everything, and we're just going to throw it on TV and let QT Marshall behind the scenes figure out how to put it in order. And now you got way too many hens in the house. And that's my question, is like, when you bring in, let me reset this. How did you feel when CM Punk debuted at AEW?
I was ecstatic, and I was kind of worried to see what condition he was going to.
I was too.
Yeah, I was worried to see what condition he was going to be in on the mic and in the ring. Not so on the mic, because he's been doing commentary, if you know him, for CFFC, so he's been working on that.
And he's been doing TV and movies and stuff.
Yeah, but more so in the ring to see what shape he was in. And I think he proved everybody wrong with the fact that he still had it with that match that he had against Darby Allin, just because he was able to dictate the pace the way that he wanted to. And that match was really well because of that.
I think that match also had a lot to do with Darby Allin.
Yeah.
I remember Darby when I saw that first ever episode of Dynamite, and he just stole the crowd. Nobody knew who he was, but he put it on the line. Same with Sammy. Sammy came out. I really wish Sammy would come back to his like panda gimmick. Like I thought that was awesome, his intro. But people evolve. But Darby Allin, when he wrestles, and maybe because he's only 100-something pounds, right? He's not a big, heavy guy. If he throws his body at you, a lot of these guys are just like, okay. Like, from a, kayfabe point of view, he definitely like looks the part. He looks like this wild Jeff Hardy, like, right? Like if you're going to go do a WWE reference, like he looks like somebody that's going to take every risk, and he plays the part and he does the part. And of course he's a skater in real life. So he's been getting hurt like all the time. And even CM Punk said, I'm a Darby Allin fan. Like if I was a kid growing up right now, he'd be my favorite wrestler. So Darby definitely stole the show from day one. And he took that opportunity. Orange Cassidy took that opportunity. But when you bring in a name like CM Punk, there's a certain level of responsibility there that you can't not put him in the mid card. You can't like put him like Sting. Sting's 60 years old. If Sting comes in to put over Darby Allin, put over 2.0, put over whoever else he's putting over, he's doing it because he wants to, not because he has to. And also, he's already had his spotlight. Yeah. But when you bring back a CM Punk, this is a guy who can still go, allegedly. Like, I mean, not even allegedly. He's already proven it a couple times with Darby and Hobbs that he can still go. He's coming back, arguably still in his prime. It's like Michael Jordan coming back from playing, baseball. Like, he's still that guy. Bryan Danielson's another one coming over. He's still that guy. So you have to put him in there with a Kenny Omega. People probably can't wait to see CM Punk with Kenny Omega. Punk, I think, has more of an idea of wanting to kind of work with newer talent. So maybe you won't see that anytime soon. But Bryan Danielson wants to come in and take their heads off. He's already said it. He's like, I love the product, but I'm not here to make other people look better. I'm here to dominate and kick people's heads in.
He also said that he wants to test himself. He wants to get a little bit wild because what you saw him in WWE, this is going to be a mixture of that with his character from Ring of Honor.
Me too.
The American Dragon, of course. So he wants to test himself in new ways, and he doesn't care who he's wrestling against, but he wants to put on top matches because he thinks he's one of the best.
He is, but the problem is, and I don't think Bryan understands this himself, he got out because he said WWE offered him a similar contract where he could still do New Japan and everything else. But he wanted to try new things, and WWE wouldn't let him wrestle the style he wanted to wrestle because of obviously his concussion history. He lost years of his career because he could not wrestle. He was not cleared to wrestle. He was literally 1 or 2 concussions away from dying at one point. His own words. Like, Bree said, stop wrestling. WWE said, stop wrestling. Every time you came back, every time somebody would just concussion. What I saw with him and Kenny Omega, I was terrified he got a concussion that episode. Like, he was landing directly on his head. And for someone that has that history, my mind is like, I get that you want to put on a show, right? You want to be the biggest show of all shows. You might not be able to say the yes chants anymore because you're respectful of WWE's property, but you want that crowd to do it, and you're not going to stop the crowd from doing it. He wants to be that guy, and I'm all for that. That's his right. It's his life, right? I'm not wrestling. It's his life. But I think you have to work a smarter style. I think you can take the biggest bumps in the world, but stop doing it with your head. Take the bumps with your body. Do submission grappling. Do chain wrestling.
Well, I think he did. He did a little bit of mixture of that in that match.
He dropped him right on his head, Dan.
Well, it was actually on his back, but
there was one like definitely right on his head. And then when he hit him with that knee, that running knee that he did from the ramp, watch the way Bryan's neck and stuff whiplashed off those ropes.
But if you watch a typical Kenny Omega match, it's fast paced, balls to the wall. He tries to go by quick. But just like with CM Punk with Darby Allin, even though they were going at a high pace, it was a little bit more of a slower down match where they were taking their time, picking and choosing what they were doing because they're trying to get the fans invested. That's why that match is so clean, because they didn't just try and put all these shit together that had no reason. And I thought one of the best things was a thing that WWE has issues with is the false finishes, where they do 3 or 4 actual finishers of the guys finish and they kick out. Whereas this one there was false finishes, but it wasn't because of the wrestler doing their finisher. It was because they were doing a move that was supposed to set up or look like it was going to finish the match. And they did that several times, and it actually made sense in the match. There's not that many points in that match that didn't make sense, where you could kind of nitpick this.
The match was phenomenal. The match itself was phenomenal. I'm just talking from a point of view of somebody who knows behind the scenes what Bryan's been through.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's a whole nother subject. Kenny works that style. He's a very physical. He has that New Japan strong style, like no doubt. But when you bring in a heavy investment like a Bryan Danielson, that's another thing you have to really consider if you're Tony Khan. Like, hey, what are you guys going to do in this match? Maybe leave that spot out. The rest of it's cool, but maybe not the most dangerous one. Like, you don't have to do it. And one thing I will give WWE credit, especially Triple H, because of his ring psychology, which is something I don't see a lot in AEW. AEW is definitely a high spot, high action. It's more spot based, right? Like,
I think there's minds in there, because
there's definitely some, but not.
I think one guy that doesn't get the recognition of putting his input on matches would be Dustin Rhodes,
Jericho.
And Jericho, him tremendously. You hear all the wrestlers that go to him and give their input. They just had Sammy Guevara on radio, and he said that anything that he thinks of, he texts Chris Jericho, and Chris Jericho tells him, do this, but then put a spin on it here. Yeah. But then they don't talk about Dustin Rhodes. That's the main reason why he went to AEW. He was originally only supposed to do one match, and then he was just gonna go off into the sunset and then be a coach. He still coaches. He started up his academy, wrestling school, and he that's why he wrestles only time from time, because that's what he wanted to do. And he's fine doing that. He just will work with the younger talent, develop them. Cody Rhodes does that, of course. Him and QT Marshall do that. I think people get a lot of, why is Cody Rhodes doing this and that and not in the word picture? It's because he's trying to help develop AEW, trying to bring it up above WWE, and he knows that he doesn't need to force himself in the world title picture every week. But talking about him is kind of like a lose-lose situation, because you got people saying, oh, he's forced himself on TV for the world title, but then, oh, he's forced himself on TV into a match with Malachi Black. That's like
another name right there. Yeah. Black, Tommy End.
But him himself has been putting people over for the past 2 years.
Of course, yeah. Cody's, even when he was TNT champion, all he did was defend it against Ricky Starks and other people coming up. Cody's been great about that. And the Young Bucks actually, for their part, didn't have the titles in the beginning. Yeah. They were letting new tag teams come in and kind of do their thing. Bear Country and a bunch of other ones you never heard of. Kenny's been basically wrestling all over the world, trying to bring up. The EVPs have been doing their thing. But that goes back. Look at some of the originals that we mentioned earlier. Yeah. The ones we mentioned most: Darby Allin, Sammy Guevara, Orange Cassidy. Just to name those three right there. Do you know what they have in common, Dan?
Well, two of the three were TNT champions.
That too. But they have ring psychology.
Yeah.
Like, they're not just spots. And Sammy Guevara, right? I said Sammy, right?
Yeah.
Sammy, yeah. They have spots, but they have psychology that goes into them. They're working with Dustin and Jericho and everybody else. Mm-hmm. You can see the evolution of these guys. When Cassidy first showed up on the scenes and he was just a manager for Best Friends, and he'd have a spot here and there. And then he kind of they made their gimmick real, and they made it so it was part. And that's my biggest fear when you bring in a Ruby Soho, who's a great like undeveloped talent, because she didn't really get fully exposed to WWE. Then that is definitely a plus. But if you bring in a Bray Wyatt, that's going to be a dominant character. If you bring in a Bryan Danielson and a CM Punk that's going to be a dominant character, you hope that it kind of rubs off on some of this young talent. But a lot of it, like the Young Bucks, drive me crazy. I've never been a big fan of the Young Bucks. My favorite match with them was way back in TNA when they used to wrestle the Motor City Machine Guns. And I saw them live in Maryland. One of the greatest matches I've ever seen. And from a live crowd standpoint, those spot-heavy matches are fantastic. But from a TV standpoint, you see somebody waiting to get kicked. You see somebody waiting for you to run, jump over 3 ropes, and springboard outside. And it doesn't come off as real. Now, what I was saying about Triple H is Triple H does have that psychology. He teaches all these NXT kids and some of these even NXT veterans like Thomas Ciampa and Gargano. He teaches them like, this is what you've been doing great in the indies that got you here. But if you do this one more thing, then this will make you even greater everywhere. And one thing you do notice about the WWE talent when they come over, and maybe Dustin and Jericho are teaching some of these young kids in AEW this too, facial expressions. Look at a Randy Orton. Look at like Triple H. Look at all these, The Rock, Stone Cold. Their talent in the ring is almost secondary to their character, because what they do is that their facial expressions. You look at a Ruby Soho, who wasn't the most over talent in WWE, even though I was a big fan of the Riot Squad. You look at a Bryan Danielson, a CM Punk. You look at a Miro. Miro might even be the best example. He always knows where the camera is.
Yes.
And he always knows to make those facial expressions when he's putting in his holds and when he's putting in his look. Watch his face; it tells the whole story. And that's something that I don't think most wrestlers learn until they get to WWE, is because there is the talent level of your moveset and setting it in and making it look snug, and that a lot of these young talents are learning. But to play the other end of the devil's advocate, the reason why these WWE talents are coming in and stealing their spotlight is because they know how to play to the camera and they know how to be television ready.
And if I can add to that, I think that is a benefit.
You can add to it, Dan. This is your show too.
But I think that's a benefit for the young talent that is being brought up, because they can learn from these guys, even though technically you're right where they're taking spots. But in the long run, would you rather move up, make mistakes, and then not fully know what you're doing and then getting up to the main card? Or would you rather wait an extra year, have these guys in front of you, pick their brains, be on YouTube where you can still get viewership, because a lot of people still watch Dark and Dark Elevation more than what people think they're watching.
Not as many that watch the TV, though.
No, they're not. But then in a year, they could be better equipped to be on Dynamite and make more of an impact, because they know what they're supposed to do. It's not going to be a one-off. It's going to be more like a storyline where they're like, okay, do your thing. Because one of the things I like about AEW over WWE is they can be themselves. They can do their own promo. They go for business. I wouldn't say go into business for himself. That's a whole different thing. But can,
from a behind the scenes point of view, it's just deemed a much better culture.
Yeah, they can create their own product where they can showcase themselves and not be held into shackles and do what somebody else is telling them to do. They're given bullet points. Yes, everybody's getting bullet points, but everything else they can come up on their own. Adam Cole was interviewed,
except Max Caster.
Yeah, well, yeah,
he has to be cleared now.
But I thought it was great that they played it great with him coming back.
His comeback was awesome.
Yeah, coming back with that, making fun of it. But Adam Cole was interviewed, and he said that he came in. They're like, just say what you want to say. Here's the bullet points, and he was shocked. He was like, was like a culture shock. He was like, I don't know what to do because I'm so used to them tell me what I need to do, check it with them. And they're like, just be yourself. He was like, we trust you.
And by the way, real quick, sorry to interrupt. The reason I didn't name Adam Cole in that entire list of people coming in is because he's really joining his best friends. Adam Cole has been an indie guy his entire life. Yes, he was in NXT for the last few years. But Adam Cole is, if you go back to New Japan and the Bullet Club and independent wrestling in America as well, he goes way back with the Bucks, Kenny Omega, and that entire clique. So I did not name him in that group of influx, even though he was a big debut as well, because I felt like he's one of those people that, even though he's not a homegrown talent, as people that have been there since day one, he's part of their culture already. So I did not name him for that reason. But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And I think he went to WWE with more of his friends because him and Kyle O'Reilly go back over a decade Bobby too.
Fish, who's about to come into AEW now.
Yeah, they went back over a decade. But I think in retrospect of this topic, there are things that they can be cautious about with having too much talent. It's making sure that they find time for all of them. That's the one crucial thing, is making time for the talent. But then at the same time, like, you're going to get that wherever you go. The one exception right now is WWE, but they're trying to get rid of talent because for a whole different reason. To me, they're getting rid of talent because it makes it look like they're trying to sell, because right now, to me, WWE is an autopilot and they're just trying to keep the product.
They're trying to become fiscally responsible.
Status quo, and then they're putting all their allocations into the entertainment side of things. That way,
go ahead.
Yeah, that way the whole WWE as a brand can make out better, because you're not just you're looking at WWE as wrestling. You're looking at wrestling, TV, looking at movies, the whole picture, and then you got Miz on Dancing with the Stars right now. So
yeah, they're more commercial.
Yeah.
So two questions before we get out of here for this first episode, because I don't want it to go too long. One, do you think Vince did this on purpose? He was quoted during a conference call saying he didn't review AEW as competition, that maybe he has to help them out. And then all of a sudden he releases all this talent and floods the market, which of course most of that talent is going to want to go to AEW because they hear how great it is and how good the culture is behind the scenes. Floods that talent, all of a sudden AEW has too much to handle and they don't know what to do. And then the second question I want you to answer before we get out of here real quick: how does Tony Khan stop from becoming Vince McMahon when Vince wasn't always like this? He came up from the grassroots as well, obviously built in this business because of his dad. But at one point, Vince was wide-eyed and willing to take chances that other promoters weren't. That's how WWE got where they are. How does Tony Khan follow in those footsteps, but not kind of follow in his footsteps to end up in the same place at the end?
I think Vince did it on purpose, not for the fact that you're thinking. I don't think he did it to hope that AEW picked him up. He knew that he had to get rid of some people. He's been doing it every year. You got the yearly releases that you do because you don't want to pay somebody when you're not using them, or if they want to leave anyway. So there was some of that talent that wanted to leave anyway, but then the other talent that like the Braun Strowman, the Buddy Matthews, who were making a decent amount of money. I think for them, it was just that he didn't see a future with them. And then they were making a lot of money, so it gave him a reason to just get rid of them. He knew, that when you release somebody, that somebody's going to pick them up, whether it's AEW or something else.
And I still think there's more behind the scenes to what happened with Bray. I don't think it was as simple as a financial thing, but go ahead.
No, I think with Bray, it was more just creative. I think that's what.
I don't even think it was that. I think there's something scandalous that will come out eventually, because if you go back to even, and this is a whole nother episode, but when you go back to what happened with him and JoJo, and when he left his wife for JoJo and got JoJo pregnant, there's always been some kind of behind the scenes like this and that with him. Back to his Husky Harris days, like there's always something that he's kind of been always sticking around because of who his dad is. And then he kind of blew up, right? But I think I think eventually something will come out of why he was released. But sorry, go ahead.
And spoiler, I think he's going to Impact and not AEW, but that's just.
I think he'll do both, like the Good Brothers. But go ahead.
But But I just think that Vince did it for the money reasons for the company, because they were technically in the negative for a while, and doing
COVID put a lot of promotions down. Yeah,
and doing all of this has helped them get above the negatives and get back into the positive side. And you had NXT, so you were able to pull up a lot of talent from there, and then bring new talent in, like they did. And then they're just doing like a whole reshuffle. They want to rebrand NXT 2.0 to make it like a more of a developmental again, instead of a third brand. And then with the second thing, I think one thing that Tony Khan could do to help stay the course and not mess anything up in the future is just make sure that you're doing it for the right reasons. He got into this because he had a love for wrestling. He has a great mind. All the wrestlers that go to
he's
AEW,
a fan with money.
Yeah, exactly. And that's what the difference between him and Turner was Ted Turner was just
Turner was a fan.
He wasn't
Ted Turner.
He wasn't the fan.
He loved his wrestling. Nah, don't get Ted Turner loved his wrestling. He's the reason it stayed on TNT for so long. And if it wasn't for him ever selling out to Time Warner, they would have never left TNT. He once famously told Dusty Rhodes they always got a job on wrestling. He loves wrestling.
Yeah, but he was just the money man. Whereas Tony Khan, he has shown that he has like a knack for knowledge with wrestling. Ted
didn't know how it worked. He just loved watching it.
Whereas I think Tony Khan has proved that he at least knows how most of it works, and whatever he doesn't know, he has a guy in place that is helping him out to make sure it happens. And I think as long as he just keeps sticking to the key demographic, with the style that they do, they're never going to cater to the kids. They're never going to cater to the senior citizens. They're going to cater to that key demographic, that 18, I believe, the 40, where you got the people.
Crowd. They always want to keep drawing in the indie crowd.
And you're always making things exciting. You're going to put on a great match. But I think he has to make sure that that everybody is working, and if they're not working, that he's constantly talking to the talent, making sure that they're happy, making sure things are getting done, and then make sure you're not overspending on stuff that you don't need to. And then it's just keeping money set where it's supposed to be, and that's wrestling. Because WWE's been around for ages, so they're taking the chances now that they're making this much. I see AEW doing a little bit of that, but it's mostly because most of the stuff that they're putting out is on TNT, the company that they're already with. So I think TNT has brought stuff to them, and we're like, hey, do you guys want to do this with us? And
Chris Jericho said they've been censored a few times trying to do stuff that they went too far. So
with bringing in new people that they kind of want like a heads up, so people aren't like, oh my god,
some of the blood and guts too.
But I think as long as he stays the course, that everything should be fine. But it remains to be seen. You guys see they're only in year 2 now, about to start year 3. You got to see where they are at when you get to 7, 8, 9, and 10.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's all very premature. And I'll finish up with this. We're very high on AEW, both Dan and I. We're very high on AEW. We love what they're doing. And we do know this is a business, the best of the best. The cream rises to the top. If some of these young up-and-coming talents aren't on the level of some of the people coming in, then spots get taken. I just wanted to play devil's advocate and say, hey, make sure you don't do that to some of these talents that you've been building. Don't just jump ship because you have a new toy. And I don't think AEW is necessarily doing that. They're giving them other platforms like Elevation and Dark to continue to evolve. But my also thing is that this is a television-driven business. It's been that way since the beginning of TV. Wrestling was one of the first shows ever on TV. People were like, oh my God. And to the point where it took decades for people to realize it wasn't real, that it was all choreographed and scripted. And while the action might be violent and dangerous and they're very athletic, people didn't realize for decades that it was kind of choreographed. What I'm scared about also has me excited. Like, I love this new talent coming into AEW. I want to watch Bryan Danielson versus Kenny Omega. I want to watch CM Punk, go at it with Chris Jericho one more time to see who the best in the world is. I don't know if they'll rehash that old storyline, but I'd love to see it again because it's been years and years and years. I'd love to see these guys working with some of the young up-and-coming talent, and I'd love to see a Wyndham Rotunda, a.k.a. Bray Wyatt, come in and maybe save the Dark Order. You know, they're in shambles right now. Who knows what they're doing with that storyline? I do think when you let the inmates kind of run the asylum a little bit, you get a lot of chaos, and I saw that definitely early on in AEW. While we were excited to have a new wrestling product, it was also kind of chaotic at times. I remember that first episode with that giant beatdown, and they formed the inner circle, and the beatdown kind of went probably like 10 minutes too long. Like they just kept going and going. Poor Goldust, Dustin Rhodes got just destroyed by every like chair and table and everything else around. They even used like the little folding tables that you use like as like a little desk thing. Like they used everything. I'll end this episode by saying this because we went probably 10 minutes longer than we were planning, but it's the first episode and we got excited.
Yeah.
And I'll give Dan one last thought. I'm excited. I love AEW. I love what they're doing. I just hope they stay the course. Just playing devil's advocate. Don't want them to turn to WCW. Don't want them to turn around and get bought by WWE and like, hey, remember back in the day when we had AEW as competition? We don't want that. We want it to be around for another 30, 40 years. Dan, what's your final thought?
My final thought is I'm glad that you brought up that once again, the whole creative control issue in AEW. That could have been an issue that could have just got even worse and then been like a burden on the company. But I'm so glad that Tony Khan took back some of the power and the responsibility and was like, hey, just do your thing, just wrestle, and let me worry about it. Because that shows guts to me that he's like, I'm going to take the position there. I'm going to worry about all this. And this is on me. Like you guys are EVPs in title, but I'm going to run the show. I'm going to make sure it all happens. Because look at WWE. They got one guy in control over there, and he does divvy up power.
For better or worse, yeah, it's Vince's product.
If that's what's got to be, that's what's got to be. And I think that's going to be the best thing for AEW moving forward.
All right, on that note, that's a wrap, folks. This is Slamtown. Make sure you drop a like and a comment and subscribe. Let us know what you want us to cover next episode or the episode after that. We're always reading the comments, both here, Twitter, Instagram, all the social media. We're all over the place. Hashtag Slamtown. Let us know you're watching. Buy the merch, brand new merch. You're going to see below when this episode comes out. All the brand new merch. We're going to have a couple of new Slamtown t-shirts. Check out FightersFirst.shop if you want to get this Chicago-made shirt. Inspired by, it's not stolen, it's not trademark. I don't want the people come after me. Just Chicago made, little Chicago star, stuff like that. A couple hidden messages in the lightning bolt, but you got to get the shirt to see it. Check that out. And then, of course, before I get out of here, I just want to let y'all know it's coming. It's coming very soon. As soon as the legal papers are signed, the British Bulldog estate has already dropped the social media comments. It's coming. The British Bulldog collection is coming to Fighters First. We're super excited about it. So make sure you stay tuned on social media. We'll let you know when it drops. Also dropped the Extremo collection today as well while we're talking business. Alex Soto, MMA professional fighter. So make sure you check all that out. Check out our other shows on the network, Art of MMA, Dan's show, Cage My IQ, as well as DFS with Cage. He's dropping all kinds of knowledge all week long. Go get his merch as well. He's got some dope Cage My IQ shirts as well in the shop. We don't have advertising on the show. We're not monetized by YouTube. We're doing this for you, the fans at home, and we're doing it because we're fans too. We're very passionate about this. We love what we do. We're not going to get everything right, but we're going to give you our real thoughts. So for Dan Bakley and myself, this is Slamtown episode number 1. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. We're out.